Hi, welcome to Studio NPL. Today we're going to talk about animation. And this is a really cool animation app. It's called Flip-a-Clip. It's free and it's super easy. Just hit the plus button to get started. We're going to name our project, and I'm going to name it Ball. Make sure onion skinning is on. Then just start drawing. And we're going to draw a ball. Hit the plus button at the bottom to add your next frame. And you'll see when I add the next frame that the onion skin is still there, so you can see where your last drawing was. The further apart, the faster the action. What we're doing here is squash and stretch. It shows weight and velocity. So the ball went all the way down, it hit the ground, and then we're going to start back up. This is a very simple animation. This app offers lots of other features like layers. You can add color, sound, you can add music, even cartoon sound effects. And you can also add video frames. If you import a video, you could trace it and turn it into an animation. It's pretty awesome. Here, the ball hit the wall and exploded. You'll notice when I redraw it each time, it goes further and further out. And now we're going to show that after the ball exploded, it glides down the wall. So now the drawings will start to head down towards the floor. Remember, the further apart, the faster the action. So the ball was bouncing faster than it is gliding down the wall. So these drawings are going to be closer together than the circles we were drawing earlier. When you get to the end, you're going to continue to trace the last frame several times because you want a moment for your eyes to pause on the final movement. You will end up looping this animation, so holding those frames at the end will really help before it starts over again. And that's it. It's pretty simple. I hope you have fun with your own animations. If you give it a try, upload them and hashtag Studio NPL. And here's an example of adding a video and turning it into an animation. I look forward to seeing all your creative animations.
There comes a time in every button's life when it may need to be sewn back onto something. And if you do have the original, definitely use that. If not, grab another one. We will also need a needle and thread. This is embroidery thread, so it's thicker, and I tied a little knot in the end, some snips, and also optional is a toothpick. To get started, open up the garment and go to the back side. I made a little dot right here where we want the button to be. And there is some old thread there. You can pull this out or use it as a reference. We're going to stick the needle in from back to front to get it started. Pull it till the knot catches, and now thread your button. We're going to do one side and then the other. And then we're going to go back down through the fabric. Now this is where the toothpick comes into play. So hold on to your button, don't pull it all the way down. You'll have this little loop right here, and we're going to stick the toothpick in between the two threads. This is going to hold the button off the surface of the fabric and make it more functional, say if it's a jacket or something thicker. Repeat the stitches on the other side, and we're going to do this on both sides of the holes twice. All right, we've done both twice. Now we will pull the toothpick out, and it may be a little floppy right here. So to fix that, we're going to stick the needle in from back to front, but don't go through a hole. Go to the side like this. Avoid the button entirely. So pull it taut, and now we're going to wrap the base of the button. 1, 2, 3 times. And that is going to help the button stay off the fabric. So we'll go from front to back, and now we're going to finish it and secure the thread. So now just do a few repetitive stitches back and forth. And if it gets a little tough to get through, that just means that it's more secure. And that's it. Use your snips to trim, and your button is ready to go.
Today we're going to learn how to do blind contour drawing. If you want to learn how to draw accurate representations, you have to train your drawing hand to work with your eye. Pick a subject. You could use your shoe or just things that are lying around the house. For this exercise, do not look at your paper. The goal is to focus closely on the detailed information that you see and to draw these lines as you see them. Keep your attention focused on your subject and let your hand trace the lines that you see. At the end, your finished product will not look perfect, but it should have deliberate line work. This exercise is designed to get you to see something, so be mindful. For this one, I did 2 layered contour drawings, and then I added some color. Have fun with it. It's just drawing.
Hey everybody, I'm Keach Rainwater. I'm the Studio NPL guest mentor for today. And today is all about matte boxes. We're going to talk about matte boxes. What is a matte box and why do you need one? So the most times that you'll see a matte box is in like a professional movie or video production. The big cameras and the real expensive setups. Unfortunately, they don't make one really for an iPhone, but they've got like internal filters and stuff. But when you're doing a professional production, you need a matte box because, and I'll tell you why. There's really two main reasons why you need a matte box for a professional production. Let's say you're outside and it's really bright outside, and you want to keep the sun from making your lens do a lot of lens flares and things like that, which a lens flare is like where you see a bunch of dots of the sun in the lens and it kind of washes things out and it makes it look kind of ugly. Now, some people like J.J. Abrams, they like to do that. They do that on purpose, but for all practical purposes, you want to keep the sun from washing out your image. And so a matte box, it actually acts as like a lens shade, and it keeps the sun from hitting directly into your lens. And another thing that it does is you can actually put filters into a matte box, and the filters are these square pieces of glass that actually slide in front of the lens, and they're really important for a lot of different reasons. So we're just going to talk about the different kind of matte boxes that we have here, and what they do, and why you need them. Okay, so the first one I'm going to talk about, now this right here I have, this setup here I have is a professional 16 millimeter film camera that you would use for like a music video or a commercial or even a television show. They used them a lot back in the 80s and 90s, well, way back, but all the way up until about the late 90s, they used a lot of film. And this is an actual 16 millimeter film camera. And this matte box that I have on front of here is what they call a swing away matte box. And the reason they call it that is that, let's say you have to make a lens change. You have to change a lens from like a wide angle lens to a close-up lens. You don't want to have to take the matte box off and put it back on. There's a little pull tab you can pull and it swings away. And you can actually access the lens, change the lens, whatever you need to. And then you can swing the matte box and it locks back into place. That's very handy. And this is on these rods. It's on a rod system. And there's two kinds of rod systems on here. One is a studio configuration, which are wider rods further apart and lower down. And then there's one like this. This matte box is for what they call lightweight rods. And these are closer together and they actually are higher up near the camera. So this would fit onto here like that on these rails, and once they're on there, then you would put your filters in and that kind of thing. So one of the things that matte boxes do is they rotate. This is what they call a two-stage rotating matte box, and this is the lightweight, like I said, the lightweight configuration, and you're able to actually rotate this. And why would you want to rotate the filter in there? And by the way, the filters slide in these little trays. They fit, the glass filter will fit inside this tray and it will slide into this matte box. And they make some matte boxes that have like 6 stages. There are like 6 different filters you can put in there. And you got to wonder, why would they put 6 filters in a matte box? Well, there's a lot of different things going on when you're doing a professional production. One is light. It could be really bright outside. Now, here's a good example of why you would need a couple of filters in there. Say it's really bright outside and your lens is only set, you've got the lens to where you want to get a shallow depth of field. In other words, where you're seeing things in focus in a very narrow, like a tiny little, everything else is blurry, but the subject is very in focus. In order to get that, you have to be able to open the lens up all the way and get that really shallow depth of field. Now, if you're outside and it's bright sunlight, that will be way overexposed. So you do what's called, you pop in an ND filter. This is a ND6, neutral density is what it stands for. And it's like a pair of sunglasses. It's very dark. You would pop that into the matte box and that would darken the image enough to where you could actually get that shallow depth of field in a bright sunny day. But otherwise, if you didn't have the matte box, you wouldn't be able to get that shot. So some directors want that. They want that shallow depth of field. They want to, and let's say also you're shooting into a windshield of a car and you want to put a polarizer filter in there, which would take away the reflection of the windshield, and you'd be able to see your actor through there. So, and you could only do that with a matte box, and because it has to rotate. You have to rotate the polarizer filter in order to see the person and get rid of the reflection on there. There's other filters. This is called a grad filter, and the reason they call it that is it's a graduated filter, and in other words, it's basically two filters. It's has a color at the top. Let's just say it's at the top, and then it's clear at the bottom, and it gradually fades down into that, almost like the windshield of your car at the top, where it's kind of blue and it fades down. And why would you want to use that? Well, let's say you're doing a shot where it's a really bright sky, and you want to show the landscape. And you see this in a lot of movies where you have a really interesting looking sky. You pop this filter in, and it will darken the sky just a little bit, or make it a color. Like in this case, it's kind of a tobacco color, kind of brown. You get that kind of dark brown sky, and then the rest of the landscape is clear, but it has to kind of fade like that. So this is called a grad filter. They call it a graduated filter. And most graduated filters are long like this. They're 3 by 4, or something like 3 by 4.5. They're wider like this, and then of course a lot of filters like this one here are just a regular square, and you can see the difference here, the real wide one and that one. And another good reason for the rotating matte box is that if your camera shot is a little bit at an angle and the sky appears a little bit, not every shot has a perfectly flat horizon, and it's maybe off a little bit. You can rotate that to where the filter actually matches the horizon, and you can shape that shot, and it'll look really good. Another thing I want to talk about is why they call it a matte box. Why is it called a matte box? Well, one of the reasons is we have these things on the front called hard mats. These are called hard mats. And this one, if you'll notice, it has, it's rated for 85 to 100 to 135 millimeter lens. That's what that's for. So when you're shooting through your lens, the higher the number, in other words, let's say it's a 200 millimeter lens or a 100 millimeter lens, you're only going to be seeing a narrow part of the lens through there. So just to keep light from spilling into the glass, they put these hard mats in front. So you'll only be, now this doesn't mean that when you see the image, you'll be seeing a little tiny square. The fact is that the lens is only recording just that much through there, and you want to cut off the light, the rest of the light going into there. So there's a variety of different sizes of these, and they just clip on the front. They're really cool. Here's, as you can see, here's some here. This is 35 to 40, if you'll notice. This actually has a little bit wider, a little bit more narrow, and then this is for like a really wide, these are for wider shots, you see. Clip it on there, and it just helps cut off the light, helps carve the light up a little bit. Here's another kind of matte box here. This is called a clip-on matte box. This actually, so if you have a camera and you're going lightweight, handheld, whatever, you don't have the rods, you want to use a matte box, this thing actually clips on to the front of the lens. And if you see, it has a little, like a clamp on there, and it actually clamps on to the front of the lens, and it also, you can actually rotate. It still rotates. So you get this set the way you want it, and you can rotate the clamp around to where you want it, then retighten it. And this has on the front of it, which is, most matte boxes come with what's called an eyebrow. This is called an eyebrow. And basically it does kind of like what you think, like your eyebrow kind of keeps the sun from it, because always the sun's usually up in the sky, right, coming down. So this helps you cut off the sunlight. If it's like coming too much into your lens, you can actually adjust this and get it to cut the glare off like that. If it's really extreme sun coming into the thing. So this has an eyebrow on it. and it has different size clamps for different size lenses that go on here. It's very sophisticated, and some of these are quite expensive. This here is a matte box. This is a wide angle matte box. Have you noticed how much wider it is than this one? This one here, see the difference? This one's for obviously wider angle lenses, so it reaches a wide view, wide field of view, and it still rotates just like the other one. And this one actually has a swing away matte box. This swings away. There's your lightweight rods right there, and this actually swings away so you can access your lens. And there's a variety of filters you can get. I mean, these go all different colors. There are different strengths of, like, the indie filters are anywhere from, there's a 3, a 6, and a 9. And so the 3 is a little bit of sort of like light sunglasses. The 6 is a little darker, and the 9 is super dark. So if you're shooting in extreme bright sunlight, you may use 1 or 2 of them to knock that light down a little bit and pop the colors a little bit. Here's another thing that we use in there. Now this is called a donut. These are called donuts. These are little rubber, they're neoprene things. And the reason we need these is, if you look on here, if you notice, there's a gap sometimes between where the lens is and where the matte box is. And light could actually get down inside there and cause a reflection in the glass of your filter. And so you have these donuts on there. These actually go on the lens, and they keep the light from, they kind of seal off the light to keep it from getting in between the matte box and the lens. So it's really, there's a lot to learn about matte boxes and filters and how to use them and the correct way to use them. One of the things that a second assistant or even a first AC would do for a production is, if you put filters in, if you can see or not, I've got some markings on here on white tape. So you would always put whatever filters you have in the matte box. A professional camera assistant would always write on either Velcro or on a piece of tape what filters are in the camera at the time, so that when you change them out, at least you don't have to pull the filter and look and see what kind of filter it is. You've got it written here, so it's just a lot more professional to do that. Here's another thing. What if you don't have a matte box and you're just going lightweight, handheld, and you just don't have that? They actually have a system that you could use for that, and this is called a lens hood. This is just say this is the lens on the camera, and this is the lens hood to keep the light from causing lens flares. But then you wonder, well, how do you get filters in there? Well, the way this works is there's threads on the front of most of these lenses, and if you notice, this lens hood will screw onto the filter, and the filter screws onto the camera, and you can stack up just about as many filters as you want on this system on front of the lens. And so they're like here's a good example. Here's an ND filter. This would just screw on here, and then you would put your lens shade, your lens hood on here, and there. Now you've got 2 filters in there and the lens hood. So there's a lot of variety of things to know about filters and about matte boxes and lens hoods and things like that. So that's our lesson on matte boxes. Now I think maybe in the future you can do a search, and I think we're going to have some links coming up in the future of how to 3D print your own matte box for your camera. If you have a DSLR camera or some small video camera, to be able to 3D print your own matte box and filter trays and try your hand at it. And I think you'll find that using a matte box will definitely add a level of professionalism to your shots and your cinematography. Just wanted to go through some of the uses of matte boxes and the terminology, and hopefully you'll get to use one someday and make your cinematography really amazing. Thanks for joining me. This is Keach Rainwater, your guest mentor for Studio NPL, and we'll see you next time.
Hey guys, it's Book Chats with Jessie. Today I'm going to give you 4 awesome romantic recommendations. and I've got a little bit of all the things you might want. So the first book, for those of you who love the tearjerkers, the life changers, this is the one. So good. It's got sexuality being explored on all different levels. It's got queer love, it's got straight love, it's got familial love, best friend love, just all the different kinds of love that you could want. Hey guys, it's Jessie in Book Chats. I have 4 awesome romance recommendations for you. 2 tearjerkers and 2 just light and heart and wonderful. So the first, tearjerker. Oh, this is so good and heavy and wonderful and light, and it's so full of hope, which I think we all need right now. It talks about sexuality, and it's got queer love and straight love and familial love and best friend love, all the different kinds of loves you could want. And it's all about being brave about who you are. It's really fun. It's sad. You'll laugh, you'll cry, you'll do all the emotions. All of them, promise. So look at full disclosure. Second, just breathe. Don't you feel like we all need to do that right now? Just breathe from your home or inside your mask. So this one is about 2 kids. One has depression and one has a chronic illness, and they meet, and while it doesn't seem like maybe that they should get together, they do, and it's wonderful and fun, but it's also really sad. It's like the sad love. If you're all about The Fault in My Stars, this is a really good one for you. You'll cry, you'll laugh, you'll have all the ranges of emotion. It's worth checking out. I'm not a huge fan of this kind of book, and yet it's a really good book, and I enjoyed it. Now, on to our fun, light books. Love this one. Frankly in Love. Okay, so this one's a little lighter. It's really fun. It's a Korean-American love story. It is so good. There's fake dating. Who doesn't love fake dating? This is also the husband of the woman who wrote The Sun Is Also a Star and Everything, so you know it's good. It's like fun. I think I've said that 30 times because it is, but it also talks about some heavy stuff like racism and doesn't overwhelm you, so it's a good entryway into those kind of books if you'd like any kind of discussion on racism or life as Korean American. It's really well done. And even if you don't want a discussion of those 2 things, your heart just like explodes because it's so sweet. You just love it. And my last one, Kisses and Curses. You guys, Beauty and the Beast retelling at a private boarding school. Do I need to say more, or are you correctly sold as you should be? Such a good read. It's just like the lightest of the group. It's really fun. You just love it. And you're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Just get on with it. It's so good. It's so good. The beginning can be just a little bit slow, so push through because it pays off in the end. Promise. Okay, those are 4 fun book recommendations from me. If you need a recommendation and it's not for romance or for YA, or if it is for YA, go ahead and head over to the website and you can click our reader advisory link and you can send an email to me, Jessie, or another one of our fabulous librarians. And I'll see you guys next time with more book recommendations.